Good morning and welcome to the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services for Tuesday, June 30th, 2026. My name is City Councillor Vivian Santos. I will be your chairperson for today's meeting. I have my council colleagues with me, Councillor Mathieu Allard, Councillor Emma Durand-Wood, Councillor Gilroy. We also have members from the Winnipeg Public Service here, our Senior Committee Clerk, Mr. Peter Grinsloo. Just want to quickly acknowledge that we are meeting on Treaty 1 territory, traditional homelands of the Red River Métis that we all have the privilege of living on. Also acknowledge our ancestral territory lands and that our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake Band number 40 in Treaty 3. And also acknowledge our neighbors in Treaty 5 where our hydroelectricity comes from. Before we move into delegations, if someone can move addendum. Yeah, for the addendum reports, please. So moved by Councillor Gilroy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that's carried unanimously. All right, we will move on to delegations. Up first, yes.
The minutes?
Yes, go ahead. If somebody can move the minutes of the previous meeting, moved by Councillor Durand-Wood. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that's carried. All right, we'll go on to delegations. First up is Councillor Chambers to be heard with respect to budget referral, Dakota Community Center third Indoor Arena Expansion Project Report 12. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. It's a pleasure to be with you here today at the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services. Today I'm speaking to an item, a motion that I submitted or tabled at our last council meeting. It is a budget referral motion for $7.5 million for the arena expansion at Dakota Community Center. In 1992, I got married and we built our first house and moved to the area of River Park South. My first son was born in 1994 and we had the pleasure of registering him for hockey at Dakota when he turned 5. So my years of experience with Dakota Community Center basically were from 2000 all the way to current date. And just recognizing the growth of that community center, the recently added refit center, as well as the refreshed spray pad that is there. Dakota Community Center serves a larger area than just the River Park South area or South St. Vital area. The catchment area is actually quite large. And Dakota is one of those facilities that is utilized by pretty much the south end of Winnipeg. Of course, we've got, Southdale to the southeast. We've got St. Norbert and Fort Richmond arenas in the south end as well. But Dakota really does provide that service for the south area of the city, not just from a sports arena perspective, also from the gymnasium that they have there, the refit center that they have there, the recent graduations that they have every year is very well utilized. Dakota has been that regional hub for many, many years, hosting tournaments with participants from all over the province, not just the city of Winnipeg. So I'm urging the Community Services Standing Policy Committee to move this motion forward so that it can go to the budget working group for deliberation on the $7.5 million that they're asking for. The president of the community center, president and CEO, is here, and she will speak to some of the growth issues that they're challenged with, and seeing, a third indoor arena added will allow the center to meet the need, the existing need. Currently, it's a matter of turning away business because they're so busy. They are that regional catchment or regional hub of sports activity for the south end of the city. Even with the South Winnipeg Rec Campus in Waverly West, we still see a demand for services at Dakota Community Center. So again, I'm urging this committee to approve the motion, have it sent forward to the budget working group for deliberations on the $7.5 million. Dakota has already been working with the federal government to draw down some dollars for some site preparation work that needs to be done. And they'll also be approaching the provincial government and doing some private fundraising as well to meet the needs of this arena expansion. So again, I'm asking this committee to move the motion forward so that we can start deliberation on funds for Dakota's expansion. If you have any questions, I'm free to answer.
Any questions for Councillor Chambers? Any motion? No, saying none? All right, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Up next, we will hear the following persons to be heard with respect to Winnipeg Arts Council 2025 annual report. We have Dominic Lloyd, the executive director, as well as Ian August, the vice chair. Do you guys want to share your time? Do you want to do 5 minutes each? You are registered separately, so.
We don't. We probably don't need 10, but
Okay.
we won't take up too much of your time. We know you have a lot of work to do today.
Sounds good. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you, councillors, for accepting thank you for this morning for taking the time to receive our presentation and our annual report. My name is Ian August. I'm a local visual artist and vice chair of the Winnipeg Arts Council Board. One of the reasons we produce this report is because it serves as a physical record for the arts in Winnipeg. On these pages, you can really see how much Winnipeg citizens share their stories with each other and with the rest of Canada and with the world. These stories take so many forms. They are shared by Winnipeg's visual artists, actors, writers, filmmakers, musicians, dancers, opera singers, puppeteers. The list really is too long for this 5 to 10 minutes. Every artist knows the impact the Winnipeg Arts Council makes in their own area. They see how the funding helps the artistic creation, how it helps the venues that are able to share their work, how it helps them to collaborate across disciplines, and how it helps the ideas and work that are celebrated here, and then tour and journey beyond the perimeter to the rest of Canada. Once these stories are created and shared, they do not disappear. They live on and continue to be shared, even the more temporal works are recorded, remembered, and relived. Perhaps the most importantly, they are experienced by Winnipeggers and become inspiration. They inspire them to seek out more work and more art to be enjoyed on their daily life. And they inspire some young people to maybe want to become creative one day themselves. For myself, as a visual artist that has been lucky enough to create public art in one of the best venues we have, the public sphere of Winnipeg, they really do get to live on. And since I created the work, I do get to see that personally. I know the lasting impacts of the art can really live on. I made the Roostertown Kettle in 2019, and I have the joy of almost on a weekly basis, someone mentioning it to me, how much they enjoy it when they're walking or cycling or taking the transit. And they mentioned that they show people when they come to town. So it does have a lasting impact beyond the time that it's built. So I'd like to say thank you from myself and the board. Thank you for the impact that we've been able to make the last year. And I look forward to what's to come in the next year.
And thanks, Ian. And I'll just pick that up. And I'll say that it's an obligation that we have as the Winnipeg Arts Council to produce an annual report and bring it and present it to you. But it's also something that we really relish doing. We really enjoy it. The theme of this year's is, as Ian said, it's called The Story of Winnipeg. And we get that title from the project that Winnipeg Poet Laureate Jennifer Still created, where she's worked with citizens all over the city to create this massive work of collaborative poetry. And it's based on this map that adorns the cover of our annual report this year. But the story of Winnipeg is what the annual report is every year. And as Ian kind of puts it, the arts are who we are in this city. And so we create a document to show how that manifests itself with your support here at City Council. And that it really is, it's everything. It's in the works that are created by Winnipeggers. It's the works that are seen and experienced by Winnipeg audiences. And it's everything from, it's the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, but it's NAFRA, which is the only contemporary African dance company in Western Canada that's based right here in Winnipeg. It's the Winnipeg Art Gallery, but it's also Sidewalk Chalk. It's the opera, and it's Manitowoc, and it's a summer rock and roll camp for girls and non-binary teenagers to learn how to play music. It's really literally everything and everything in between, and that includes things like Nuit Blanche and James Watt that get citizens out in their neighborhoods and experiencing art and experiencing community and engaging with each other through the arts. And it's also, as Ian says, it's public art, which creates better public spaces. It also, this is documented evidence. It creates community safety, it builds, social capacity, it builds economic prosperity, all through the arts. That's what we do with your support as city councilors. And we've been really grateful for the projects that we've been able to work on in the last couple of years. We have, in fact, this very evening, we'll be celebrating a brand new work of public art at what is formerly known as Odeon Park, now Kevin Walters Plaza, right in front of the Burton Cummings Theatre. There's a wonderful new sculpture by an artist named Frederick Spence. And I encourage you all, if you're not busy at 5 o'clock this evening, to please come. The artist will be there. It'll be a really great celebration. We really love being able to do those things. And I just will remind you that a couple of years ago during the budget vote, council directed the city administration and the Winnipeg Arts Council to work together on a % for art strategy. And we spent a lot of time working with the administration. We had a really good year we spent working with the folks here from the city of Winnipeg to create that. Unfortunately, the recommendation was deferred to the following budget process. But what I would really like to say is to urge you, I guess, to consider that a priority for the coming budget cycle. I think, as Ian said, I'll just use gratitude as my theme to close off. We really are grateful, and we, as the Winnipeg Arts Council, have the capacity and ability to speak for the arts community of Winnipeg. But the ongoing support of City Council is so important. It's such an integral piece of how the arts work in this city and what contributes to quality of life, to social and mental well-being, and just as importantly, to over $100 million of GDP every year that comes directly from that investment that City Council makes in the Winnipeg Arts Council every year. So just to close off and say, this is what we've been doing with those funds that you allocate us, and we want to say thank you. Thank you for helping us help make Winnipeg a better place and a more vibrant and a more resilient community. And again, we're grateful for the support, and we're really happy to do the work. And thanks for taking the time this morning. If you have any questions about what we're up to, we're happy to answer them.
Yeah, just a couple of questions I noted on, more particularly, professional development grant program. I think there was another program out there, project grant programs. You had a lot of applications. However, maybe like less than half were totally awarded, so not all your funds were awarded. So maybe just kind of talk to me like at a more micro level, like what were some of the challenges of why you couldn't fulfill, why some of these applications didn't get them, or what could we do better to ensure that, all the funds could be, distributed? Because it looks like maybe less than half were distributed to the community. So what were some of the challenges that you noted? So like just for instance,
I think, Councillor, if I'm understanding you correctly, what we're reporting is the number of funds that were requested that we received in applications versus what we're able to give out in grants. So the short answer is more money.
Right, okay.
But so yeah, we definitely have far more demand than we're able to fulfill. Through our processes, which are jury processes, which use community knowledge and community input to make those decisions as to which projects are funded. That's how it works. But certainly, additional resources would go a long way to creating more opportunities for the arts for everybody in the city.
And then I noticed in your final page here of the statement of operations, 2025 versus 2024, I did note that the province of Manitoba you guys didn't receive any funding from the province of Manitoba or government of Canada.
So generally speaking, our funds come like 98+% from the city of Winnipeg. We have, it's part of the formula is there's a federal contribution provincial and a municipal. There are arts councils at all those levels. What you're seeing in 2024 was a special project for the centennial of the city of Winnipeg. We did a project called City of Song, where we engaged people in different ways of singing throughout the year. So we actually raised that money additionally. That was a special initiative. But it's something that we do, and it's a good point that you raised, Councillor. We are constantly on the lookout for ways to do more fun things and to attract additional investment. So whether that is through public art, whether that's through special events, over the years, we've done, what brought me to the Winnipeg Arts Council back in 2010 was when Winnipeg was named Cultural Capital of Canada. So that was a project that WAC undertook and raised $4 million outside of the actual allocation that we get to undertake those special programs that are over and above the sort of ongoing operational things that we do.
Excellent, thank you. No other questions? I did see some hands pop up. Yeah, go ahead,
I
Councillor.
just want to thank you for all the work you do. You do amazing work. So you should be very, very proud. And thank you very much on behalf of, I'm speaking on behalf of all my council colleagues. We really value the work you do. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you.
And please come tonight at 5 o'clock at Kevin Walter's Platinum.
Okay, up next, we have Michelle Augert, the president and CEO of Dakota Community Center, to be heard in support of budget referral, Dakota Community Center third indoor arena expansion project. Good morning.
Good morning,
Thank you for
Madam
coming.
Chair, councillors, committee members, and guests. Good morning and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of Dakota Community Center today. A place that is so much more than its community center name implies. In fact, Dakota has been a preeminent regional sport and recreation hub for Winnipeg South, as well as a leader and key player in multiple citywide, provincial, and national events for decades. And we know that sport and recreation build strong and healthy communities. Dakota Community Center serves as the beating heart and hub of programming for thousands of our surrounding communities and so many beyond these defined catchments. We know that each day somewhere between 70 to 80% of the people who come through our doors are not from our designated Dakota community catchment. That's why we know our role is so much bigger than our name. Over the past nearly 40 years, Dakota Community Center has touched the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, hosting numerous international, national, provincial, and local events, tournaments, and celebrations, including the Police and Fire Games, more than 25 North American Classic Youth Hockey tournaments, 28 local high school convocation ceremonies, numerous Manitoba Aboriginal Youth Hockey tournaments, national figure skating championships, several Western Ringette Nationals, countless high school hockey championships, and just last week, the retirement announcement and celebration of one of the world's greatest hockey players, just to name a few. This is certainly no ordinary community center, and our future holds promise for so many more signature moments in the lives of Winnipeg residents. As we prepare to celebrate our 40th anniversary next year, our leadership have solid plans to ensure that our long-serving impact can continue to flourish for the next generation. To do this, it will be critical to gain support from all levels of government for the third arena and recreation center expansion project to ensure Dakota remains functional and responsive to the needs of the community served by our regional complex. While the motion before committee clearly articulates the need for the city to support this growth and redevelopment and future of Dakota and the campus on which it resides, it should be noted that Dakota has a very solid track record of significant growth and continued success amidst a system not necessarily structured to support the pace of change required to be relevant and survive the rapidly changing role of community centers and the demands and expectations of today's residents. Throughout our transition, Dakota has been bold, responsive, and persistent in ensuring that growth and redevelopment of our heavily used facilities were addressed, generally without adequate funds available from the city to support and modernize more than 160,000 square feet of critical community infrastructure. City leaders and politicians have widely praised Dakota's role as a regional center of excellence, audit what we've been able to accomplish. Over the past 4 years, and since the opening of our field house in 2018 and Canada's first fully accessible outdoor rink in 2019, Dakota has led more than $4 million in infrastructure improvements including a full 1.7 million redevelopment of our ice plant, powering our 2 existing arenas, setting the stage to move forward the center's long-held vision of a 3rd arena to complete our multiplex. All of this with minimal contribution from the city. This business model, along with the strong support of our network of donors, partners, and sponsors, will enable Dakota to commit significant portion of capital funds to support this new arena and expansion project. And we have all other major projects, as we have with all other major projects in our history. We also have the significant support of the federal government, who've also identified this project as a priority project in the 2026 federal budget, and who have committed $7.5 million towards getting this first phase of the project underway. This is where the city's support is critical to securing the major funding required through the other levels of government. With our facilities housed within the Dakota Park land owned by the city, we have reached the point where the city's support to make the proper and necessary safety and capacity improvements to the campus we reside on and share with several other city authorized tenants, also supporting our communities. The need for modernized multiplex arena facilities in the city has never been greater. Dakota's ice facilities are operating at capacity, and we cannot continue to meet the current demand. There are also multiple antiquated and aging support infrastructure issues surrounding the Jonathan Toews Sportsplex that require significant renewal. Despite the previous $8 million designated in the 2022 city budget for a new arena, that's really just put band-aids. Many of the city's aging one-sheet arenas they all lack the safety of features required for our modernized infrastructure.
And Jim, a couple more sentences?
Just a little bit more, I'm almost done.
Okay, Councilor Gilbert gives extension 1 minute. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, sorry. The city, the shortage of appropriate modernized infrastructure or facilities with required amenities to support large and national events and placing beyond capacity demand on Dakota's regionally upgraded Twinplex. Additionally, increasing growth in girls and women's hockey programs, with which Dakota has fully embraced, continues to provide a powerful reflection of the direction where female sports are headed in the city. They're inclusive, they're competitive, and full of opportunity, and an affirmation of what we need to do now to meet the needs in the future. Dakota has and continues to be a gem in the crown of this city, but can't compete this vision alone. We therefore are asking for consideration of the city for funding of $8 million from the city to complete the site improvements and parking expansions that will benefit our community and all occupants and users of the Dakota Park campus. As well, we have just received our Class C budgeting recently and are asking for an additional $5 million to represent 10% of the funding towards the addition of the new modernized arena and recreation renewal to further enhance our role as a regional service provider in the city. Thank you.
Any questions? Just to kind of back up a little bit, you mentioned that you guys had garnered $7.5 million from the federal investment. Could you just talk about a little bit about that program when you had applied for that?
Yes, so that was, we applied for that quite some time ago and did receive approval. We had actually applied through the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program for $25 million to support this expansion project and site improvements. We were successful in obtaining $7.5 million in a phased approach to do phase 1, which included mostly design and costing exercises, which are currently underway. And we are currently in discussions with the federal government, housing, infrastructure, and communities to look at other funding opportunities under the Build Communities Strong Fund. And they are very committed to ensuring that this project gets completed here in Manitoba.
Then how long will this first phase, like I'm assuming the 7.5 is to kind of help you bring it to a class 3 estimate? Is that what this is?
It'll be to a Class B. We've just received the Class C, and we expect this first phase of design and costing to be complete by the end of this year.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you for coming out. I do see Councillor Edie had arrived and he wants to speak to a couple of items. If I can have somebody suspend the rules to allow Councillor Edie to speak in delegation, moved by Councillor Gilroy. All those in favor? Aye. As carried.
So Councillor Edie will be speaking to reports 10 and 11.
Okay.
And titles are Community Incentive Grant Program, North End Women's Center, Inc. and Community Incentive Grant Program, Marymount, Inc.
Thanks. Councillor Edie, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues. I'll be fairly short. I just wanted to explain to the committee what these two reports are all about. I'll first speak to the Community Committee recommendation on the North End Women's Center. I want to point out something. It's interesting that you have, I believe, on your agenda a prep grant happening. And utilizing, I believe, what is the community funds capital fund that each councillor has. I think it's 115,000. We could use maybe I don't know which department is in oversees that community fund capital, but this prep one sounds a lot easier than it was in terms of what we're calling a CIGP type of grant to the North End Women's Center's new build for a transitional housing and programming space on the main floor on Selkirk Avenue. And they're in really high need to assist women in the North End and somewhat beyond in your ward as well, Madam Chairperson. So the difficulty is they did receive dollars to build the housing, and but they looking for more money for like the programming space on the main floor. And so they approached me, and I let them know that, well, we have this community fund capital grant capability. So I originally had them go through the CIGP process, and the recommendation here, I believe, is not to do a CIGP, but our community committee, we supported waiving that and providing the community funds capital to this project. And it's essentially for the elevator to make the building accessible. And I think that's very important anyway. So I just wanted to point that out. More complex problem that we have is Marymount on Scotia. They have a building called the Leacock Estate. And when the nuns of Marymount came to Winnipeg, the city/municipality of West Kildonan donated the property to the sisters so that they would be able to support women, originally just women, in Winnipeg who were struggling way back at the turn of the 1900s. The Leacock Estate, though, was essentially taken over from the builder of that pre-1900s. And so the building's very old. And you may recall there was Marymount, because of the cost of renovating very old buildings according to the heritage indicators on the building, this roof has to be replaced. Well, not the actual roof, but they're doing all the soffits and they're waterproofing the roof as well, because it has been leaking. And what's happening is Marymount, we denied them the ability to take it off the list and demolish it. And so as a councillor in the area, knowing that Marymount is getting good results for our youth, we see it on the streets all the time, right? So we really need to support organizations like Marymount to assist our kids in getting through difficult times that they're facing. And so if we don't, they are providing some programming for high school, obtaining your high school diploma on the main floor. The upper floors, they have some programming that they want to do, but you can't do programming if the roof's leaking and you have all kinds of problems there. So what we've done here is they didn't qualify for the 240,000. Yes, essentially, basically the Mynarski ward is covering off pretty well almost the whole expense. It's 500. Well, it could be up to almost $500,000 to do this, depending on what the company that's doing the work discovers. So I hope that you'll all vote to move this forward. What we're going to be able to do here is we're keeping a heritage building for the city of Winnipeg in a very historical area of the city, where the settlement of the Selkirk settlers started in this area and so on. And so along the Red River and Scotia. So please support both recommendations, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Edie. Appreciate you coming out and speaking to those two items. Seeing no other questions? Okay, we will move on.
Thanks.
I don't think we have any other delegations. No, okay, we can move straight into reports. Up first is the Winnipeg Arts Council annual report. We heard from the delegation earlier this morning, so this is just to be received as information. If I can have somebody move that. Moved by Councillor Lavard. All those in favor? Aye. Up next is the verbal update on the encampment response protocol. Okay, morning. We have Greg and Chris.
Peter, that's what last time I got this
You got a slide and a chart? Yeah, sure.
You want to plug it in?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yep.
I can just head down and go, right? Okay.
Sure.
Limited USB real estate here.
Yeah.
This laptop. Okay. Good morning, thank you, Madam Chair, councilors. So this is our monthly verbal update on the encampment.
Chris, can you just hit the screen share on the Zoom app?
Oh, yeah.
That green button. And then, yeah,
Look at this. Okay. And if I project. Is that okay?
Mhm.
Okay. Excuse me. So this is our monthly verbal update on the encampment protocol and policy. So our last update was in the beginning of June.
Keep on.
We have some new data this month. As with previous updates, I will be speaking to the number of on-site inspections, the number of signs that we posted at encampment sites, and the number of signs that have been reposted. Similar to last meeting and following your direction, we'll also be bringing forward 3 charts: the number of encampments cleared or abandoned by ward, the current number of known encampments by ward, and the current number of known individuals who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness in encampments by ward. Today, I'll also give a brief update on our partnership with Silo Mission Off the Streets team and their work over the last month to remove garbage from encampments that are occupied. The data from most will only be for a 3-week period just because of the timing of when they submitted that information and this meeting. So before we get into the charts, and I'll speak to the one on the slide after, but first I want to provide some information that we typically do around signage and inspections. So since last report, we have completed Overall, since November, we've completed 175 on-site inspections. Since last report, that's an increase of 45. We have posted 184 no camping signs, which is an increase of 19 since our last report. And we have replaced 23 signs throughout July. So those are signs that have been taken down, we put back up. Turning now to the data tables. The first table that's on the screen behind me shows the number of sites that have been actioned since November 2025. This includes 141 properties, which is an increase of 33 since our last report. So to remind everyone what this chart refers to is, if someone submits a request through 311 around related to an encampment in the city, that is triaged to the encampment coordination table, or ECT. ECT will then do a number of actions, but effectively one of four things has happened that has led to this count. We have sent out our mobile outreach service provider, Main Street Project, to respond to the encampment. They've been able to support the person who's residing there. They've left the encampment and we've cleared it. Alternatively, we may have sent out our bylaw service officers who have gone to the site, and because of that visit, the person at that site might have left. Or there's some other interaction from the city, which could include police services or the WFPS, and based on that, the individual at the site would have left. Alternatively, a final option is the individual without any interaction from the city may have just left their own decision. In any case, under all those circumstances, we would have gone to the site, cleaned up the encampment, and then that is reflective of these numbers. Moving on to the next slide. This is the number of known encampments by city ward. Again, we receive this information from Main Street Project. They do a point in time count each month for the city. At this time, there are 69 encampment sites across the city. This is an increase of 7 since our last count. It does not include bus shacks. As shown in the chart, Point Douglas and Fort Rouge are still the two wards with the highest number of encampments and account for over 50% of all encampments in the city. Then the final chart I'll speak to today shows the number of known individuals in encampments identified by Main Street Project. So we say known because that means that MSP has gone to the site, outreach has been to the site and met with the person, had interaction with them. MSP does, like last update, estimate that there could be an additional 60 to 70 people that they have not interacted with at encampment sites, but that's an estimate. So right now we know there is 216 people across these 69 sites. 2 additional updates similar to last report. The outreach also commented that they are seeing an increase in the number of people who are sleeping rough throughout the city. So this is not staying in an encampment, but could be on the sidewalk, in a doorway, by event. What they're also seeing is an increase in the number of temporary overnight structures that are being erected around the city. So what this means is people are creating some sort of a structure or setting up a space to sleep, and then in the morning they're taking that down and moving on. In some cases, MSP has identified that the reason for this is some of the work that policy and procedure is doing with visits from bylaw services, WPS or others. And for those people who are not staying in a structured encampment for multiple days, those are not included in our counts as well. So these are people who are just setting up a space for the night and then leaving in the morning.
Can I just, quick question, I
Yep.
know you, so in speaking with MSP and the work that they're supposedly supposed to be doing with people who are sleeping rough or people who are in encampments, are they also marking down their interactions with the individuals and asking them why they don't want to sleep in overnight shelters? Like, my assumption the shelters are not fully at capacity, unless correct me if I'm wrong. And why, what are they reporting back on that, or like
They
what
are.
their interactions are?
Greg might have that information at his fingertips a bit more than I do, just because he's got his phones. But I can say that of the 216 known encampment residents, I think it's around 110 or 115 MSP has completed Your Way Home registration forms with.
Okay.
And there's only been 20 people out of everyone they've interacted who's declined their services. For those people who haven't completed Your Way Home registration forms, it's because they have some other connection with other housing support services or some other avenue to access housing. So most people in encampments, aside from about 20, would take housing if available. Is the information we're getting from MSP.
And so the rest are choosing to remain outside. If I could be so blunt.
I think it's also important to note, I believe that the shelters are still at capacity. So there isn't necessarily room at the shelters for people to attend.
Stay overnight.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what the provincial government has done is that's not really overnight, that's more drop-in services, is that correct?
That's correct. So the additional support they've offered the shelters over the past few weeks that's been announced is more about the daytime spaces.
Sorry, go ahead. I don't know if anybody else had colleagues. I just wanted to understand that.
Wait till after the.
Yeah.
presentation.
And then the final piece, I'll be quick here. I just want to recognize our work with MOST. So MOST is a Mission Off the Streets team that's run out of Siloam Mission. We discussed this a little bit at the last meeting, but the intent of partnering with them was to clean up in occupied encampments, so encampments with people in them. MOST is uniquely positioned to do this work, and the program is a employment program. So it is made up of community members from Siloam who are ready to take those first steps back into the workforce. It incorporates a structured work experience, specifically with beautifying public spaces in Winnipeg, and provides opportunities for participants to build confidence and develop employment skills and earn an income. So it's good. And they're also able to meet with folks in community and then clean up those spaces in a good way, as or best way as possible. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, they've removed 7,030 kilograms in pounds. That's 15,500 pounds worth of garbage from encampments in the surrounding areas. They've filled over 311 industrial sized garbage bags. If you've ever done a home remo, these aren't your typical garbage bags. You have these big, super thick garbage bags, and they've filled four 20-yard containers of garbage. So I think it's also important to note that because of where the encampments are located, it's difficult to get heavy machinery into those spaces. They're down embankments. Those embankments are often muddy. The garbage that they're collecting is often litter or small pieces. So a lot of this is just using pickers and bags. It's a very long and very hard work. And I think they've done an excellent job removing quite a bit. So just wanted to flag that, and we're going to be exploring options of potentially continuing work in some way to ensure that we can keep spaces around encampments as clean as possible. So that concludes the full presentation. I can take any questions now. I'll come back over besides Greg.
What? Yeah, oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry.
So, well, a few questions on, first of all, the presentation. So are you, and I doubt it, so just, are we collecting the data from, we now have a new face of shelter, right? Like people are not no longer encamping necessarily in tents, but they're using our bus shelters and stuff like that. Those are not included in these numbers. Am I correct on that?
The bus shelters are not included in this count.
So for moving people along, it has to be a structured encampment.
Then the number that we're quoting is it's an encampment that's a structure of 2 or more people. I don't know the off the top of my head, but it's not just someone's resting or sleeping, say near a vent or a doorway, and not in bus shelters.
And then on that data, like if I've reported it, but the city hasn't like come to clean it up, but I've gone and are hired Straight Links to come, are their numbers recorded in that? Because I feel like I would have reported it, but the city hasn't come to build the encampment. So then if I go to the second.
Yeah, if say it was on our list to clean and you've cleaned it up and then we show up to clean it and it has been cleaned, we will mark it off as being cleaned.
Okay.
But if not, then we would miss it. So it'd be good to know if you have had any third party clean a space. We'd definitely be interested.
Yeah, usually I reported it to the city first, so it might be included in my data. Okay. And then I guess my next question is, so we're starting to see the discussions on the shelter is interesting. I heard the same thing, that we don't have the shelter space, which should be something that the province should do. So that is true. We do not require, because I always thought that we opened like a shelter space on Logan if we didn't have the space available. Is that being utilized?
Lima? It's presently being utilized, I believe, it's in the Waymo, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's a daytime space, and I believe there's overnight capacity there too. I don't know, Chris, if you know the numbers on that.
I don't, not on mute.
Okay, so we currently do not have the shelter space required to manage what we see with there, right? Okay, so that's correct. And so another concern that I'm hearing, so just in terms of your discussions with the province, is that we're getting, in my word, I just know from my word, is we're getting people that have been incarcerated, but they're now being dropped off, right? And they're being dropped off in encampments. Has there been any discussion with the province of trying to deal with a temporary housing location for those individuals that are coming out of incarceration, so they're not added to the numbers of homelessness? Because they're not necessarily,
We know provincially that the provincial government is looking at a suite of areas where they see routes to homelessness.
Yeah.
Incarceration being one of them. In terms of the specifics around how they're managing that, unfortunately, we can't speak to it. I don't know.
okay, so there's been no discussion. Okay, and then another thing that I'd like to have help on in terms of how we can have a policy now that reflects, so now we're starting to, I hear that people are telling people that maybe to go onto private lands because the city cannot intervene on private lands. So, and I know it might be a little bit more of a challenge on private lands that have people living in that space. But is there any policy that we can do around private lands that the house is vacant or the land is vacant? So clearly there's no occupancy, there shouldn't be any occupancy. Is there any kind of policy that we can have our crews go onto those properties and help manage that issue? So that, because those are usually taking place right in community, right beside those homes. Is there some kind of policy you could help draft to allow us to deal with those issues?
Well, I think that's an interesting idea. Certainly, we would, if council offered us that direction, if there are a substantial number of private properties that are being occupied and the owners aren't within earshot, I think I can only imagine that would be very difficult as a neighbor. So if that was something that council felt was worth us exploring, certainly we would do that.
There is existing rules. So for example, if there's an encampment on a public piece of property, the first step is always for that the private owner to contact police. And through that they're able to enforce the trespass action, ask the person to leave.
Yeah.
I think that I'm pretty sure that's how that process works, but it's up to the property owner initially. If the property owner isn't available or they're not responding, they're absent, something like this. There are steps the city can take through its existing bylaws that would require the property owner to maintain their property in terms of you can't have, in the same way you can't have long grass growing or garbage. They would have to do things to ensure that the property is safe. I think for the surrounding residents, it'd be better. I'd have to consult bylaw to get a better understanding of that. I do know there's been a few instances where we've had an encampment on private property and the private owner wasn't involved, and we were able to remove some of the structures that were there that were problematic. And again, it'd be on a case by case basis. We could go away and come back with some information about this. We could also, like Greg said, if there was a desire for us to do a report or some direction on a policy, we could do that too. But I think there's already something in place.
Yeah, but I think the challenge is and maybe it's just because we have to follow the Your Way Home, so it's a different challenge. I think the challenge is that we have to follow our policy. So I think it's really important for people to understand that the reason that we cannot move people off of any public land, right, is because they have to have either housing or a place to go, correct? So we don't move them off the land if there's no housing available, unless it's a priority 1 park. Am I correct on that? Or safety, maybe it's safety.
Typically speaking, yes. So housing does two things. One is if we are able to offer housing to someone in an encampment, by and large, 99% of the time or 90% of the time, people who are in those encampments will take the housing because that's the best option, and they'll leave voluntarily and we'll clean it up. If someone says no, we have housing to offer, then that enables us to use our enforcement capabilities, depending on what that might be, what authority we're using to enforce those individuals to leave that site. Without housing, those two avenues are limited.
Right.
So I think, yes, to answer your question.
Yeah, and your way home strategy right now, from my understanding, there is no housing available, right? If you're following your verbiage.
Yes.
It's limited. Yeah, it's limited.
And then just in conversations, has it been brought up, like, you know, because there's federal money for reaching home strategy for the federal component, because we're also having a lot of people that are from First Nations communities from up north, and they may want to get back up north. But there might be a burden in the cost because some of them are flying communities. Has there been discussions with the federal government on helping to fund people to get back to their home communities? If that is kind of, they have homes in their home communities, but they need to get back there and there's a burden there. Is there any kind of discussions through reaching home to be able to access funding to get people home?
I'm not sure about reaching home specifically. I do know the province has flex funding that's available for the agencies that they fund. And then through that flex funding, they're able to support repatriation back to home communities. And that work, I understand, is happening now for those who want it.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Thank you. I know that I bombarded you with a bunch of questions, so. And I know it's a lot of work, like, and I just want to thank everyone for the help on Portage and Sherbrooke. That's been a lot of teamwork around there, so thank you for that.
Any other questions? No?
Just on the counting. So if an encampment is reported and identified by Main Street Project and logged, and the encampment then is removed or disappears, is it still counted? Is once it's checked, if it's checked again and it's no longer there, is that counted as site removed?
If the encampment was there and it's been removed, it's no longer counted as an existing encampment, but if it has been gone, it is included in the 141 of the total number of sites since November that have been cleared.
That we cleared, okay.
Yeah.
So if the third party goes there, then that we would, or you would capture that number
Yes.
as well, okay. I think you had asked earlier.
I think one good question to ask for the public is what is the time frame for Priority One Park? What is the reasonable time frame? Because I know that some people are getting the longer time frames that, you know, that 311 provides, but it's my understanding you are clearing them out a lot faster. Can you just give me that for the public?
Unfortunately, I can't give a good, clear answer to say it's this many days. I think it's all site specific. So if an encampment in a Priority One site, depending on where it's located, it will determine which bylaw we would use to enforce removal of that site, whether it's the parks bylaw, streets bylaw, what have you. So we are working within, typically it would take several weeks for us to collect all the information we need about the site, to work with our internal services and then come up with a plan to address the encampment. Also during that time, outreach is meeting with the individuals there to see if there's some other avenue we can take that is better for the person in the encampment. And between one of those two interventions, typically a person will be supported to move on elsewhere. I will say though that since our last meeting, in particular around the comments with rail properties, we've met with CPKC and with CN, and that has prompted us to do some redrafting of our scripting with 311 in terms of someone's phoning in about a rail property. So we're also looking at all of our scripting, for example, just to ensure that what 311 is telling people in terms of the amount of time it's going to take is accurate to what is being done. So we're working on that right now so that if someone's phoning 311, they will get the most accurate information around how long it's going to take and what interventions are going to be doing, what interventions will be done during that time period. So it's not just those will be 14 days or this will be 30 days.
Well, yeah, even just having the information just to call the rail line themselves, because they're very fast.
Yeah.
Right? They're a lot faster than us. So if they can call them and get that process started, right?
For the rail properties,
Yeah,
it's really
leaving our people to do other work, right? So,
For rail properties in particular, if we're able to identify where it's located, we will provide the correct rail number, whether it's CPKC or CN. And if we don't know where the property is, the public service ourselves will take it on, identify it, and then contact the rail company. So either way, we're going to try and expedite that as fast as possible for the public.
that's really good.
So could you just, so you mentioned that all the scripting for 311 is being updated. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on like what the public could expect if they call in or email in an encampment concern?
There'll be no immediate change right now. We're looking at what is being told to residents currently when they call in, and is there information we can provide around the steps that will be taken. So not that we'll get back to you in 14 days but updating it so that there's an idea of what the first several steps will be in addressing the space that the resident has a concern about. Did you want to add any piece to that?
Well, no, I think it's just important to note, like we understand, we had anticipated there being maybe more possibility for putting people into housing come spring, and we also recognize how complex that is from the provincial side. It's everyone on our provincial teams are working around the clock to try to locate units, renovate units, and get people housed. In the interim, we're in a bit of a perfect storm where the weather is changing. People are choosing to sleep outside. And I think for us, our capacity to address that is increasing as well. But we understand the public is frustrated. And so we're trying to just create clear messaging that gives people a sense of our reality and gives them a realistic sense of how soon we can help and how soon we can, as a city, address the issue that they've identified.
Go ahead, sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. It's a good conversation. It's
Yeah, so just in terms of the law, the court case that came in from Ontario that doesn't allow us, like in Ontario, to move people off of public places unless there's either housing or another space, a designated space. Are we prepared if that were to, a similar court case were to take place here? Has your department had some considerations on how we're going to react to that?
I'm not, which court case in Ontario are you referring to? Apologies.
There was there was a court case against the province. They were doing infrastructure work and they had to remove people off to build a road.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Emma. She knows about it.
In Waterloo.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, and the court case said that you cannot move people, so they wanted to do this construction work, but they couldn't move people unless they provided either housing or a designated space. So similar court could happen here. So just wondering if we're going to be able to pivot fast enough to be ready if that were to take place.
I think we're lucky here with our legal services team that there's a team of, I think it's 10 lawyers within legal services that are monitoring all of this work that's happening across the country and are keeping us advised of any changes to the case law, and they provide that to us regularly. I think we are aware of the current legal requirements of the work that we're doing. If something were to come up like this, where there's an infrastructure project happening, I think we are prepared as we can be. We would have to manage on a case-by-case basis to see who are the individuals at that space, what needs do they have, would they be willing to move for different interventions that we're able to offer. But I think from a legal point of view, I think we are prepared to respond to it. It would just depend on the situation itself and how many individuals are we talking about, what is the infrastructure project, and what alternatives do we have to offer people to allow them to potentially move to a safer place.
My concern is more of a court case against the city for moving people off of land without providing a space. So that's just not necessarily being an infrastructure project, but just to give you some understanding about, I could see us being, you know, a court case running against the city, which, you know, has been talked about already, that we're moving people off of public land, but not providing us a space for them to be. So just throwing that out, you don't have to respond. Yeah, so just to keep that in the back of people's minds that this could be something coming forward. That's something.
Any other questions? No, that's great.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thanks.
We can have somebody receive the verbal report. Thank you very much. Gilroy, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, contribution agreement with the government of Canada for Old Exhibition Park Sensory and Nature Parks Play. Hello, okay, thank you for coming.
Morning,
Morning.
Chairperson, fellow councillors. This is about our old exhibition park that we have in the city. We put North District Police Station into one of our parks, and there was certainly a lot of community concern about doing so. And as a result of that, part of the budget for that police station was $900,000 to upgrade the park and the neighborhood. And there was a design charrette that was held in 2023 with the community to see what they would like to see in the park. And a grant application was applied for at that time too. And to match with the funding, the $900,000 in funding in September 2025, that grant application was signed. And the recommendations here are to accept the grant, enter the contribution agreement, increase the capital budget by $125,000. We're looking for retroactive approval from council on this because the agreement was signed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the opportunity to have the additional $125,000 in this project. If council does, you or council do not agree with that, then we just simply will move forward without extra $125,000. So that's it.
Okay. Any questions? Concerns? No? Okay. If somebody can move the public service recommendation.
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Councilor Lard, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that's carried. Moving on to item number 4, Millennium Library Security Verbal Report. Morning.
Kelly Lewin here for Community Services, and with me is Karen Borland, our manager of our library services. So today, what we're here to talk about is to provide some information on Millennium Library. Specifically, we were asked to come back and just provide the committee with some information on the current state of the security measures at Millennium Library, and also talk about what we have heard from our staff about their experiences and perspectives relative to safety and security within the facility. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen, who will give you an update on the library.
Thanks, Kelly. Good morning, everyone. On May 4th, 2026, Council did request a verbal report from the Public Service to the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services for this June 30th meeting on the current state of security measures at the Millennium Library, including staff experience and perspectives related to safety and security. I'd like to begin with a bit of a description about the importance of free and open access to the library and how that relates to safety. In order to preserve the positive impact of libraries on community health and well-being, it is essential to address issues of safety and security in all of our libraries. The Canadian Urban Libraries Council led a report recently that used results of a survey conducted in 2025 and captured data from 53 large Canadian urban library systems. This was to measure social impact using data and metrics beyond our conventional measures of circulation, gate count, and program attendance. The survey measured people's experiences along the dimensions of intellectual, creative, social, and emotional impacts. In part, the survey results confirmed libraries create impact by helping people to navigate major life changes, by providing access to collections that enrich lives and support wellness, and offering safe, welcoming spaces to gather with others or to simply feel less alone. So today we are providing highlights of actions taken over the past approximately 10 years to describe how we arrived where we are today with safety and security at the Millennium Library. We go back 10 years because there is a general consensus among our frontline employees that a significant rise in safety incidents did begin around 2015. Of course, we know that the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated social issues of poverty, homelessness, untreated addictions, and mental health conditions. Today in 2026, we continue to see chronic unmet need in our community, which contributes to the cause of incidents when people enter our facilities either unable or unwilling to comply with the code of conduct. People struggling to meet their basic needs often can benefit the most from information and services provided by the library to connect with community resources, to use a computer and access the internet, and to be in a community space where they feel they belong. Public libraries are one of the increasingly rare places where visitors are not required to purchase something or to state their reason for being there. In this way, and along with the many opportunities to participate in library programs and events, libraries help reduce the impacts of social isolation. Our challenge is identifying effective safety strategies that do not impose barriers to free and open access to the public library, while ensuring a safe and respectful community space for customers and workplace for our employees. The following highlights of action taken over the past 10 years is not exhaustive. Addressing safety and security issues is a regular part of daily operations within the division. So going back over that period of time, we have upgraded and added CCTV cameras and monitors, delivered specialized staff training in conflict de-escalation, hired a second and then a third community crisis worker, developed procedures for shelter in place and lockdown situations, worked within a partnership with the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, installed a metal detector in 2019 in the Millennium Library lobby, which was removed in 2020 during COVID closures, partnered with Fearless R2W, now Zungizi Ode, to provide library locations as sites for practicum training for their new community safety host initiative, leading ultimately to a contract in 2024 for safety hosts at Millennium Library. Conducted a crime prevention through environmental design study of the Millennium Library lobby, reinstated a metal detector in the lobby in 2023, and engaged 2 Winnipeg Police Service special duty officers on site from January to October that same year. On July 13th, 2023, Council approved recommendations in the report on improving safety at the Millennium Library and other Winnipeg public libraries by providing funding for 5 additional security guards and 5 new community safety hosts at Millennium Library, as well as increased funding for safety training. We've provided handheld radios for staff on each floor of Millennium Library for direct communication with guards, hosts, and crisis workers. Installed a new service desk on the main floor during the design process. Staff were involved to give their feedback on incorporating safety features. The 4th floor public area was reconfigured to increase space between public computer workstations to reduce conflict among customers. And we relocated the service desk closer to elevators and public washroom for improved sight lines. 2 new positions were established: the Administrative Coordinator of Customer Service and Safer Spaces and a Library Safety Specialist. The library incident reporting system was updated and access to it was broadened at staff request. The community services banning procedures and our code of conduct were reviewed and updated. A full day of training was offered for staff delivered by local Crisis and Trauma Resource Institute. And we implemented a monthly review of expiring bans to assess any code of conduct violations during customer banning periods, for example, attempted reentry while banned. Beyond these action items, library staff make a significant contribution to a safe, welcoming facility with the services they provide every day. In particular, staff develop and maintain information resources to help connect customers to community supports for housing, employment, mental health, harm reduction, and other basic needs. With regard to staff perspectives on safety at the Millennium Library, there are 130 employees working in this facility, each with their own perspective on safety. While it is good to see the incident numbers going down at Millennium Library, as reported in the last few quarterly reports, it is important to remember that even with declining incidents, an individual experience can have significant and lasting impact on an employee or member of the public. At the end of May, there was a meeting of the Millennium Library section head supervisors who had consulted with staff in advance of the meeting about their perspectives. And at that meeting, their perspectives and experiences were shared. So some of the themes from that meeting include staff generally acknowledge the safety improvements that have been made and feel safer than they did in pre-COVID days. Particularly over the past 3 years, they feel safer. Some staff felt safer after the metal detector was brought in for weapons screening. The question of high turnover of security guards was asked specifically, and that is not being observed by our employees. There is a consistent core group of the same guards being scheduled with the same site supervisor for over a year. In general, staff expressed appreciation for security guards and safety hosts, in particular for praise for guards' actions in escorting people out of the building when necessary, and for the safety host skill with de-escalation. Staff shared their hope for a redesign and renovation of the lobby to create an intentionally welcoming entrance with improved sight lines, foot traffic control, and a staffed greeter desk. They do observe room for improvement that we can make in the working relationships among staff, security guards, and safety hosts, and would like to see a re-entry process developed for use when a person's banning period comes to an end. Some noted the current project to raise the height of guardrails on the upper floors at Millennium Library. Beyond reducing the risk of a critical incident, this improvement has benefit for mitigating the stress and fear experienced by some staff about potential incidents. Next, I'll speak about the current work, the ongoing work, and next steps for Millennium Library. So we will continue to source and deliver specialized training for staff to build skills for de-escalating and managing incidents, to communicate with and engage staff on topics of safety, to learn more about their experience and perspective, including debriefs following incidents, to regularly review our code of conduct and branding procedures for effectiveness, build positive, effective working relationships between employees, security guards, and safety hosts, incorporate design elements during renovations and new construction to improve sightlines and create public spaces that support safe use of the facility, participate in community forums such as the Downtown Safety Working Group, where safety issues really cross all sectors and members can share information and strategies, and to consult with other jurisdictions across Canada to develop and share resources and successful approaches to improving safety. So coming out of those conversations with staff, we will explore a re-entry process for people at the end of their ban, and we will review and assess staffing levels for the impact that that has on our capacity to respond and recover from incidents in the best way possible. So in conclusion, I'll just say that we're always working on trying to achieve a balance of different approaches. There's no single solution to safety. We all know that. To build a really robust culture of safety that supports our employees in their work and our customers in their pursuit of information and service from their public library.
Thank you. Question?
Mine is not a question. I think it was a very thorough report. So I just want to appreciate the work that you're doing. I think that the libraries are, you know, when we, an example, basically for all of our kind of different services, whether it's through recreation, that City Colossa and our other pools and other city amenities. You guys have done a nice job, and I hope that we look to you for guidance in other areas when we need to, because I think you're doing a lot of really great work. And I'm really glad you had those discussions with staff. I think as somebody that, you know, you hear things in the background, I think it's really important that we're making sure we're connecting the staff, especially the staff that has had you know, some traumatic events happen to them within our facilities. So you've done a lot of great work, and thank you very, very much for the work you're doing and continue to do.
Okay. Any further questions to? Nope, saying none. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Appreciate you guys coming out and providing that report. We can have somebody receive the verbal confirmation, moved by Councilor Gilroy. All those in favor? Aye. It's carried. Moving on to regulating short-term rental accommodations, 2025 annual report. Welcome back.
And we also have Terry Cornier.
Yes.
Yep, who's our administrative coordinator with our licensing branch in LBE. So council has directed public service to provide an annual report on short-term rental licensing statistics and enforcement activities. So the report that's before you and the information we'll be providing is for the year 2025. It is a report that we're asking for the committee to receive as information. And we will consider, and as our other recommendation is that on an annual basis, we'll come forward in June to this committee with the same information. I'm going to turn it over to Winston and Terry, and you can walk you through some of the highlights of 2025.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Good morning, Madam Chair, councilors, and Mr. Clerk. Yes, we were tasked with bringing back a report that outlined licensing statistics as well as enforcement activities and any available police data. We broke out the report into really 6 different areas, and I would suggest, I think it's a good news report. Part 1, we looked at the implementation update to advise on when we initiated the program, what occurred, the number of licenses and so forth. Part 2 is about licensing statistics over the first year and now the second year. It's important to note that the financial implications, I think, is a positive for the city, and that the revenue is combined by both licensing fees as well as the fees from the destination marketing reserves for accommodations taxes. And overall, for the year, it's about $1 million in the positive for the city. Part 3, we look at the accommodations tax and to advise on some of the opportunities and challenges we had with licensees in terms of collecting these fees and the ongoing work of our enforcement team. And that leads us to part 4, which shows the enforcement stats. And I think what it would demonstrate, the statistics here, is that it's not a reactive program. It's a fairly proactive program. We do take a lot of feedback through 311, and any of the counselors or any of the residents who are near a short-term rental accommodation, that we will do some proactive inspections of those locations as well. And then obviously we've taken some corrective action throughout. I believe part 5 is then on any available police statistics from WPS. And part 6 is to, in this past year, we've also received funding from the federal government for short-term enforcement fund, short-term accommodation enforcement fund, which provided us, I believe, just a bit over $750,000 over the 2-year period, and which has allowed us both greater enforcement and to look at greater efficiencies we can look within our program. As our acting director, Kelly, had indicated, our recommendation is to bring forward both this information and to provide this annual report in June of every year. And that's because the majority of our licensing occurs between April through to March of every year. So it allows us to then have those statistics available for you to bring it to the June meeting. Now I'll pause there, and Mr. Cormier, I just want to indicate that Terry directly oversees the program. In my opinion, he and his team have done a tremendous job of creating this program, as well as taking council's direction on both being a reactive and proactive program, and being a situation which is not costing the city any money. And we're able to regulate the program, which will increase community safety at the same time, encourage the industry to be successful. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions for Terry or I.
Go ahead, absolutely, absolutely.
So we're still, there's still only a limited number of licenses, correct? The number of licenses that are out there is staying approximately the same?
Yeah, we have the statistics here. This past year, it is, number of licenses are, yeah, 870 licenses were issued this year. So it did increase over the previous period from 698. And that increase was primarily in the primary category, which is someone's own home that they're then having a component that's being rented out.
All right.
On page 7, the tax compliance. I feel like there's a little bit of a trend here of non-compliant for reporting and paying, like it's pretty noticeably going up. Do you have any comments why that might be, or any implications of that?
And you're referring to types of penalty notices issued? On page 7 on top?
I think we're just different numbering. They're looking at.
Oh, sure, yeah, accommodation tax compliance for Q2, 3, and 4.
Section 3 and 4. And 4.
Here. Got you. So it could be also just a timing thing, why those numbers drop depending on the quarter. So they do have 21 days past the time to be able to submit their accommodation tax. In addition to that, there are other avenues in place to deal with accommodation tax. So an example being, if your accommodation tax isn't paid in full at renewal, we don't renew you. So there are other avenues. So yes, the numbers do look like there are still some outstanding payments. They usually catch up pretty quickly towards the end of the year.
Actually, I just noticed too that the sequence of the quarters there is not logical, so I think I might have actually misread it. So
no problem.
Yeah, thank you. I have another question as well.
Yeah. That's true.
So the section on police service data, you know, in my ward, we have a number of residents saying that there's like ongoing issues with questionable behavior at the short-term rentals, and they're wondering why there isn't more sort of a direct link if there's a lot of calls for service, why that doesn't seem to have an effect on whether their license gets reduced. So could you share where things are at with that?
So that's a very difficult question to answer. Specifically, there's a number of things that we kind of need to look at. So number one is we do have a very close relationship, informal with the Olympic Police Service in regards to dealing with some problem properties associated with STRAs. But it's also trying to find the balance of situations where it's operator orientated versus client orientated, and trying to find that balance in regards to communicating and working with the operators to try and address whatever issues are going on. So if the operator is working very closely with us in regards to trying to address those issues, that would be a situation where we would definitely work with the operator and look at potentially renewing their license. And or certain situations, if we do suspend, if there's a specific condition put on an operator, that we would be able to monitor the term of the license. So once again, it's trying to balance the issue of, you know, what the issue is. Is it more operator issue, not trying to address the operation of the STRA, or is it just a specific tenant that stays for 3 days and there are some issues within that 3 days? It's more about how the operator is trying to address the issue.
And that being said as well, like if the information is forwarded to Terry and his group from the WPS, then we do our proactive inspections of those locations. And we have taken action in terms of enforcement, and it's probably on a different page for yourself, but type of penalty notices issued to indicate that, you know, we've identified a number of different operators without a license through to, you know, advertising without the license, or you know, we'll take action on them. We have suspended, I believe, some licenses as well. So based on feedback, both from the community and the police service, Harry has the authority to number one, we'll send inspectors there who will assess the circumstances and situation. If they then feel that we can add conditions to the license, so it may be that they can only operate between certain times or certain days of the week. There can also be conditions that if they are receiving more complaints, then Terry can look to suspend the license, which they can appeal to this committee. And so we've taken actions like those in the past. We don't report those back to the public due to FIPA requirements, but there is action taken.
The proactive spot checks that you would do, are those like timed to when the infractions are, you know, the complaints are happening, or are they just like daytime hours?
No, we do have our staff working weekends and evenings to do a number of spot checks, and it's based on those trends as well, right? And if we receive a lot more complaints on the Friday and Saturday evenings, then we will switch our staff to that. And we just did I can say it because he's got it, we just did an operation last week in which we were out Saturday evening, and certainly did receive a lot of good feedback from tenants at various different facilities that they appreciated us being there on a Saturday night.
Thank you.
Okay, so I do have a follow-up question on part 5. Maybe if you could expand a little bit more on police and yourself in trying to collaborate a little bit better when it comes to data and police reports and stuff. I think there was seems to be some issues with sharing of information. Is that correct? Or maybe if you could just kind of clarify a little bit more on how you're continuing to work with Winnipeg Police. I do have some concerns when it comes to the crime, the criminal activities that are happening in hotels, specifically trafficking. We've heard those concerns earlier on several years ago, and now we've brought in this program. And could you maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure, Councillor. We don't have a specific formal agreement with the Winnipeg Police Service. They're not able to connect calls for service directly to STRAs at this time. However, as I mentioned, we do work very closely with the police service, specifically on problem properties, to try and address ongoing longer type issues, which would hopefully look specifically at human trafficking and some of the issues that brings with them. So once again, a very good relationship with the police service. We communicate with them weekly. We talk about specific properties weekly. We just need to work towards a more formalized agreement of trying to figure out how their calls of service are able to share with us specific to STRAs.
Okay. Is that something that, I know we've got some federal funding with respect to, you know, upgrading our bylaws and doing a little bit more enforcement. Is that work doing with those with that work? Sorry, you know what I mean? So Government Canada Short-Term Rental Enforcement Fund, I knew you have a table back here that talks about like ongoing work and tools and redesign. Could that conversation be added to this table list of?
I think the funding structure is already set. However, with that being said, I think that as just part of the ongoing program, that's something that we definitely continue to have discussions with and look at broadening our relationship with WPS in the future.
I just want to point out, this is very important work. You know, to the work that we're doing when it comes to the MMIWG, to like, this is very, very important. I can't stress the what we need to really do and crack down on that, and anything. And I know you guys do a tremendous amount of work. I just want to keep advocating and pushing to have those ongoing conversations with Winnipeg Police and sharing that information. Because the more we have that with your department, with Winnipeg Police, I think it's good. I'll leave it at that.
And if I can say, Madam Chair, and through your leadership at the time when we were implementing this program, we did reach out and consult with Ms. Joy Smith. And, she's recognized as an international expert on these issues. And we took feedback and information from herself as well as her organization with the police service at the table to craft the legislation. The reason why the bylaw is that way is due to the feedback from both parties. And I think it's incumbent upon us, and we continue to work with the WPS to ensure they see us as a bit of a tool, an enforcement tool, right? And we're not being an incumbents to them, as opposed to if you go into a facility and you're finding that there are issues there, and you recognize that it's a licensed facility by the city of Winnipeg, you have additional powers to what we can do to ensure the safety of these very vulnerable people. That I appreciate what you're saying. So absolutely, we'll continue to work on those fronts with the WPS.
Thank you for that clarification.
Just on what Councillor Santos said, and this being a very important issue, do you need council direction in order to do that connection with police? Is that required? Because sometimes you need that council direction.
At this point, I don't believe so, because we do have a good working relationship with them. When we created the bylaw a couple of years back, we consulted with their senior team to get the feedback on what they wanted to see in terms of what the bylaw would stipulate and require of licensees. I think it's a matter of, there's such a large organization that we do have very good informal relationships with them at our inspector level, our field level, with our field operatives, as well as theirs. And so there's ongoing communication on that ground. It's when you get into a more formalized agreement that candidly, you engage, then there's lawyers and others involved, that takes a little bit more time versus the ongoing conversations that we have with them.
And then I guess another follow-up question, is there opportunities for education with becoming a license, having a license, kind of like we did with car shares, right? We started to do in taxi cabs, we did training so that drivers know and understand what to see and respond. I know there's a lot of work done in hotel industries. So is there an opportunity for us to provide that, and that becomes part of the licensing requirement that owners have to have training on looking for sex trafficking?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that there's always opportunity. So we can look into that and see what we can bring forward, and perhaps even include into the STREF funding, because it's there for another year. And I know that, Perry, you could probably expand on it. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but we did something like that at the front end, correct? When we started licensing.
And it is still a requirement of STRA operators to read and post literature specific on human trafficking that was created as part of the Joy Smith Foundation, Winnipeg Police Service, and ourselves. So that educational component is there with a clear understanding of what that educational component is. It's specific to operators to identify the risk of human trafficking going on within their STRAs. But to further what you're saying, Councillor, I think, potentially looking at some additional training, right? Initially, this is what we did. Now we're 2 years in. What additional measures could we put in place to ensure that they understand what is being given to them?
Yeah. And on that point, and you're probably quite aware that I believe the foundation that Ms. Smith has in Winnipeg, the National Center, does provide some free training that we can then look into, because we did discuss that initially with Ms. Smith. And so we can obviously review that again and see if that's a requirement that we can then have with some new operators coming.
That would be great, because if we're still seeing this increase and not going away, I think the onus is on us. We have the ability through, our permitting process, and so I think it would be good.
And I just do have one more question. Okay, so I do note here, it looks like you guys will be coming back in September. with proposed changes in evaluation framework.
Yes.
So without getting too much into the details, am I expecting a lot of changes or some
No, we're
Okay.
looking at making some
minor
minor
amendments?
amendments.
That's great.
More wording, more verbiage,
Okay.
more clarifying what's there already. Just in regards to some firming up on language and a couple safety aspects of the plan.
And it was due to council's direction at the time that we negotiated this program that they asked us to come back in a couple of years with any minor amendments, I think, wording and such.
Yes. Excellent. Good work. I like to hear that. Okay, we'll just move on. If I can get a mover to support accepting the report for information, and subsequent annual reports will be scheduled for council's consideration each June. Okay, moved by Councilor Large. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Community Services Annual Fee Waiver Report. This is an annual report that you guys come to us to talk about what fees have been waived. If I'm noting, there's a substantial amount.
Yes, there is.
$2 million in fee assistance in 2025. You don't have last year's number in your, you?
I
think
don't
so.
believe so. No, we can make a note that we could put a comparable
Yeah,
number.
I would
Let's
like
do
that.
that for next year.
Yeah.
I have Jennifer Larson with us, who is our business recreation business office administrative coordinator, who is very well versed in the department's recreation services fee assistance program. So yes, this report coming forward is a requirement under the Community Services, Recreation, Leisure, and Library and Fees and Charges Policy. So we're required to come back annually to the committee with a list of all groups or organizations that receive fee waivers valued at over $5,000, as well as providing a total of for all fee assistance provided in the year. So for 2025, the department approved $2,578,861 in fee assistance. This is primarily in our recreation area with 2.558 million, and almost $20,000 was provided in waivers in libraries. Libraries, most of their services are free, so that's why we're not seeing that significant dollar value. In terms of recreation, the fee assistance is being provided for our registered programming, memberships, equipment rentals, and facility waivers. So the recommendations for this report is, first of all, to receive the report as information, and including the list of those organizations that received waivers over $5,000. And there's also a recommendation for an amendment to the bylaw. In one of the clauses, 5.2D, it is, we've got a typo. We have the word or when it should be for. So we need to go through up to council to make that approval. So that would be the second recommendation. Just a little bit of background to provide you with on the fee assistance program. So fee assistance is considered for individuals and organizations through an application process. The policy itself, the fees and charges policy, does speak to the eligibility of the eligibility criteria for receiving a fee waiver. And the Director of Community Services provided the authority to waive those fees within the department's annual budget. So the type of services that fee waivers or fee subsidies are available for our equipment rentals, our facility rentals, which is what you'll see in just a moment, for program fees, as well as public admission fees. So program fees being any of our registered programming, including Learn to Swim lessons. People, nonprofit organizations, public schools, and government departments are all eligible to apply for fee waivers, but they must meet very specific criteria within the policy. I mentioned earlier that library services does provide some waivers. Those are, generally speaking, those are facility fee waivers, but again, it's almost about $20,000. It's spread over multiple groups. Not one of them has sort of reached that $5,000 level. Within recreation, fee assistance targets low-income families and individuals that are residents of Winnipeg to provide equitable access to recreation and leisure activities and programs, as well as facilities. For facility admissions or program fees, we could waive or subsidize 100% of it, or a portion of it. It can go anywhere right up to 100%. So this report that you have before you is the third report, so third time we're coming forward. And just as a bit of a background here on the budget, we've got our 2025 budget for fee assistance and fee waivers was $2,545,000 in 2025. That's increased slightly in 2026. And again, as I mentioned, the Director of Community Services does have the authority to approve these waivers. Some of the, I just want to go over the some of the sort of criteria with regards to it. When residents of Winnipeg who demonstrate a financial need to remove barrier to access are eligible to apply for recreation and leisure programs, as well as public admissions offered by the department. Recently arrived refugees within their first 18 months of Canada, and where the definition of refugee is as per the city's newcomer welcome and inclusion policy and strategic framework, is a person who has fled war, violence, conflict, or persecution and has crossed an international border to find safety in another country. We also consider individuals that are temporarily relocated to Winnipeg, so they're not residents, but they are here due to the evacuation from their home or community because of natural disasters such as floods and fires. When these are considered, for example, if the Red Cross engages and asks for assistance, the director will waive the fees, but we also then try to recover as well whatever we can through a disaster assistance program or other programs that are available to assist with that. Nonprofit groups or organizations in public schools may apply where the fee assistance is necessary to remove barriers or remove barriers to participation by at-risk, special needs, or low-income individuals, equity groups, vulnerable or marginalized populations. And fee subsidies for facility or equipment waivers may only be provided where the facility or equipment is being used for a recreational, healthy living, cultural, library, educational, food security, or reconciliation focused activities. So it's a broad criteria, but it also keeps us focused on the intent of the fee assistance program. So again, mentioned at the outset that the fee assistance fee waivers for 2025 was $2,578,681. I'm not sure what page would be on yours, but we do have a chart with regards to the breakdown of what those fee waivers were. So we provided for leisure guide programming, so that's all of our registered programming, almost $430,000 in subsidies. Facility memberships, which we issue a 10-visit pass to those that apply and are approved. The value of those 10-visit passes, which is based on usage, was $1,079,341. We have a small amount of equipment rental waivers of $4,402. And then our facility fee waivers, $1,045,282. With libraries fee waivers of almost $20,000, and that makes up the 2025 value. Then further to the policy, we do have a list of the annual subsidies and waivers provided to groups and organizations that were greater than $5,000. There were no groups that met that criteria for libraries. In total, for recreation, we had 21 organizations that requested and received fee waivers value of over $5,000 for a value of $811,000. And then bringing down where we've got other types of fee waivers for less than $5,000 was $233,000. So as you can see, starting at one, the first one is a value of $203,000 all the way down to $5,000 in fee waivers. So lots of statistics and certainly open to whatever questions you may have.
I just had one question. So what I note is that we're doing a great job in partnership with the Winnipeg School Division in offering them some waivers for them to access our facilities. However, I just wanted to know what conversations are being made, vice versa, right? Right. Schools are obviously closed down in the summertime. And they're, from what I'm hearing, they're not open to the public, or you gotta apply for a permit or et cetera. So could you talk about what conversations are being made so that, if we need to offer services in a school that's like, I could just think of Tyndall Park as the perfect example. It's a community school, right? Where the gymnasium is supposed to have a shared agreement with the city of Winnipeg to use their gymnasium. So where are those discussions? Are they charging us a fee to take out a permit to use their facility? Because it seems like we're doing good work in providing them with a fee waiver.
I can speak to our current practice in terms of using facilities, and then there is a larger conversation perhaps on the master use agreements. But presently our agreement with the school division is to use their school permitting process when it does come to accessing their facilities. So there are 4 intake seasons every year for the schools that we can apply for school space. There is, similar to our own permitting process, some parameters around what hours the school makes available for community use. So we are somewhat limited that way. We do fall 3rd in line of priority. So internal school programming, and then childcare or like before after type programs. Those will precede us in consideration. I would say most of the schools that we are trying to access, we are able to negotiate permits that match our programming needs. There are some challenges, however, with some particular schools. Not so much in the Winnipeg School Division, but in other school divisions that are posing some problems when it comes to our being able to access schools. I would say in a fair and equitable trade of service.
And so we are working on we do work with the schools. There are a number of agreements. You would have likely heard the term the joint use agreements with the schools that were developed back in the 70s, early 80s, that we are working with the schools in it. But through those agreements, some of them were around development of facilities. So giving the city available access, as Jennifer said, that there are times of access that we can have. There is a priority of who gets access when. We do work with them individually, each school. There are some schools on here. This certainly doesn't represent all the schools who are receiving fee waivers, but in the end, there is a good relationship with the schools, and the recreation team does work with them. So while we may not get everything we want, we are getting time, and not necessarily are the schools all receiving waivers from the city of Winnipeg. I don't have all the details in front of me, but some of these are very, very specific programs that have been operating for a fairly long time, as opposed to maybe a school using one of our facilities to deliver their curriculum, right? There might be something a little bit different of it. So we do work with them. To answer your question, there's going to be some trade-offs, but we are working with them on all fronts to access their facilities.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Florence.
So what happens, because this is an internal number, right? Like, this isn't something that council directed, it's an internal number to community services for the waiver of fees and stuff. That's an internal.
It's the budget. It's in the council approved budget.
It is. Okay, so I guess the concern is what happens if Because we know we're starting to see greater uptake on these things, right? We can see that from the numbers. So do we need to look at increasing that amount? Because, I mean, I guess it's a concern, like, what happens if you get to that threshold, you just say no more money is available?
It's certainly, it certainly has been a point of discussion within recreation. The team in recreation spends a fair amount of time managing the budget. Our budget, as I said, for 2025 was about 2.5 and change. For 2026 is 2.6 million, so it's gone up a little bit. We work within what we have, and there's a very detailed process by which the recreation team, gets the applications, understands what's going to be coming online in terms of particularly the facility ones, but most of it we can't predict. We can't predict what is going to be in there. Should there be an incident where we start seeing the pressure on it that we're going to need to go beyond it, certainly we bring that through the budget process for sure. If we needed to. If we did see a need for an increase on it.
Yeah. Do you have the ability within that, do we have the ability to say, we want to support the recreation fees over how many people we allow into our facilities, right? Do you have that association, that ability to do that?
We have the discretion, certainly it's within our operational discretion. To date, it's been balanced, I would say, that we've been able to, manage both the individual fee subsidies versus the, use of facilities. Just as an example, the recreation team, we were finding pressures a number of years ago on the budget because of the application for our membership. So we had like 6-month or 12-month passes. And at one point in time, our fee assistance program, it was that if you could apply for a membership, if you met all the criteria, your fee would be waived for that 1-year membership. And the value of that membership was recorded as a fee subsidy. Recreation did a lot of work, did some analysis on the usage, how many times somebody actually used one of those passes, and through the work and the pressures on the budget, wanted to come up with a way to still provide service, but reduce the pressures on the budget. And that's where we came through with what's called the 10-visit pass. So you can apply for, say, 1 year worth of facility access, a membership fee. But what we give you is a pass that's got 10 visits. Once you've used them, it can be recharged as many times as you want. So now only the value per use is being used. And that was one way to manage the budget while still providing service. So again, always looking at ways to manage within the budget and still provide that. But yes, there are pressures on the budget and we manage with it and we would bring it forward through the budget process if we saw a sort of a trend that we weren't able to address.
I guess one more question is, I guess most of this is, for example, like kids going swimming, so there's a higher cost that than like, I know at Cindy Claus you can rent a room, right? But whether that room's rented or not doesn't really, you're not adding more staff on for that. But if you're renting out the swim pool at Cindy Claus, that's going to be a bigger cost. Yeah. So I'm assuming that most of this rental is the higher cost things.
I wouldn't say so. I think we have a standard fees and the fees and charges for both facility rentals, like room rentals, as well as pool lanes, etc. So we waive those particular fees. So it's not really a matter of. It's really we're waiving what the council approved fee is. So if you ask for a waiver for a portion of a pool, we would figure out what that value is that we would normally charge you, and that would be waived. So higher, it could be higher, could be lower, that type of thing. But when it comes to the individual ones, it's a little bit different because we're looking at the swim lessons, right? We're looking at individual programs. So it's a little bit all over the place, depending on what the waivers for.
Correct. And I would say we do also review whether or not this falls within the standard like operating plan. Anything that would be considered at the extra or add-on, the higher cost items. Those are not covered by our fee assistance program. So if, for example, we did have to bring in extra staffing, those charges are applied to the user group and they do have to pay those directly.
Okay, so it's just basically like us taking a certain class or dance class, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead.
And I apologize if this is in the report and I missed it or you've already said it, but do you have a sense of like what percentage of the overall like revenue that we would have received for all the different recreational services, like what percentage of that is waived?
Percentage of our total.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, can't recall what our total revenue is. I can get back to you on it, but I just the top of my head, I don't want to state a revenue number and it's incorrect, but we are, the recreation services is heavily tax supported. Right?
Yeah.
If I recall a couple of years ago looking at it, 20% is 20% of overall costs is recovered out of the total expenditure budget, but again, unless you know
Not off the top of
my head, yeah. We get back to you.
That would be great, thank you.
Just a general question.
Sure.
Specifically, if you or is it a standard form, or how does the organization go about if they're looking for a fee waiver?
So we use a web form for the leisure guide activity credits and memberships. And then we have a different form as well for the equipment rentals and a third form for the facility rentals. So 3 different versions of the form, depending on what they're asking for. That's available online and at any of our facilities.
And then for the individuals who get the passes, how does one go about doing that? If you're an individual who presumably meets LICO, or is that the
It's like
threshold?
the income testing, yeah.
So a person goes to, I don't know, to front desk somewhere and says, I'd like to get a free facility pass, or do they have to go somewhere specifically?
It's all managed by a central office support staff. It's added to their Leisure Online account. So when they do attend the facility for the first time, there will be information to the front desk staff there saying this individual is receiving a new membership product, requires their picture taken and the card to be administered. So
We are cognizant of perception, and so if somebody is looking for a fee subsidy, by having them send in an application, fill it out at a counter or online, etc. It's all approved behind the scene. By using their Leisure Online account, they're not having to come up and say, I was approved for a fee waiver, could you give me my pass? It's just they give their name, you're giving information, go to the desk, give them this, and everything's done. It's as if they're purchasing it, so.
our membership products are also available to the general public for purchase online, so it matches the same process. If I purchased my membership online, I walk into the facility for the first time and I need to get the picture taken and the card issued. It's the
same process.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Seeing no other questions, if I can have somebody support the public services recommendation.
That.
Okay, moved by Councilor Lar, all in favor? Aye, and that's carried. All right, moving on to our addendum reports. Just want to, I don't have any concerns with any of the community incentive grants. If someone's willing to move an omnibus kind of motion for 8, 9, 10, 11, 14. To move them up. I think all of them did not meet eligibility criteria, and I believe the area councilors are moving some funding to allot to certain projects in their ward. I'm of the opinion that area councilors kind of know what they want to do with their funds, and I want to push this through all the way to council. So without having to go through each one of them, I've gone through each one of them. I don't have an issue. They're just, I don't know how we do that. Like they're community committees did not concur in the recommendations of the public service and recommend that all of these reports go up to EBC and council. That would be kind of the omnibus, if that's okay with you guys, unless each one of you want to go through each one.
I'm worried about 12, so
Okay.
that's one I'm worried about.
I'm not pulling 12, so
Okay, so
just the
sorry.
community incentive grants.
Oh,
So
okay,
8,
yeah.
9, 10,
Yeah,
11, and 14. They're all community incentive
yeah,
grants.
I'm fine with those. I like counselors, I think
Yeah.
should have their discretion.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Gilroy to move those.
Yeah.
Forward to EPC and council for approval.
Mhm.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Okay, we'll go on to item number 7. I believe this one is a grant agreement with White Ridge Community Center. Is that you, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on up.
Sure, yeah, no, you know, making it short, the public service agrees with upgrading, resurfacing the basketball court at White Ridge Community Center.
And this one's using prep money.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay,
I guess in this area, because there are so many new accounts, you know, maybe we don't require all the prep, like that's a lot of money. It's the whole prep budget, basically. But okay, that
is it
sounds.
because Waverly West Ward Park is doing, or is the White Ridge is doing the resurfacing themselves? It's not the city of Winnipeg doing the resurfacing.
That's correct.
That's why you need to give them a grant.
The key part is a grant agreement in this particular case, to give them the money and they're gonna undertake the resurfacing themselves,
Yeah.
which causes all these other recommendations attached to it.
Yeah.
I see, okay.
Okay, yeah, good. Moved by Councillor Gilroy?
Sure, yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried. Okay, we'll move on to budget referral, Dakota Center. Third indoor arena expansion project. I don't think we have anybody here to speak to it. I don't know if there's any discussions on, this is a referral to the budget review process for consideration.
Well,
It is extra monies.
Yeah, I just,
7.5 million.
yeah, I'm just gonna put it on the record.
Sure.
I understand that, you know, community might want, you know, an indoor arena, but so do lots of areas. And, that area of town has received a lot of funding with the Waverly West development. So even though I know they're not in the same community, they're in the same kind of, corner. So it's a lot of money where I think, you know, there's lots of arenas that we're looking at redeveloping, and there's a lot of other areas that need this too. So I will not be supporting moving this on at this time.
Any other comments, concerns?
I mean, I'm torn, but I'm sure what do you think of doing it for this?
Well,
I mean, it is a budget referral, so
It is a budget referral.
it's not,
Yeah, and we will be having obviously new council in the new budget. Just looking at it, Peter, it doesn't necessarily state what year. It just says budget review process for consideration. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to slightly amend this to either forward it to the SPAP or multi-year budget.
If that is the will of the committee, we can make that amendment, subject to council.
Because we
approval.
do have one more year to go through the last iteration of the multi-year budget, which is usually a kind of a cleanup. And then we go into SPAP 4-year, multi-year budget process. And I think that's where the conversation kind of tends to go towards, because the final year is just usually just a.
The only thing is like getting a placeholder, even if it's like year 4, getting a placeholder means a placeholder. That's budget that is not aligned for other areas. So I rather use, we have the arena, I think it's coming up soon. What about, are they coming back with the arena study? Can we move it to that? Isn't there something coming back?
I know we spent $8 million to refurbish arenas. Dakota is getting 300,000.
They're doing like
I don't remember
look
a
at all the
study.
arenas and see.
That does not, I don't think we have anybody here from the public service to speak to that. I'm not, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'll be asking for a similar thing, asking for a pool referral in the near future, so. That's not necessarily gonna be a political ask, though. It's possible it comes from the public service.
Okay, so when it comes, wait a second, so just to be clear, when it comes for the budget referral, will it come back to this committee to decide on what moves forward?
So, okay, so this is an automatic referral from council. So today, this committee has to make a recommendation back up to council. So council has the final say with whatever happens here. So if it does end up being a budget referral, it essentially goes on this committee's shopping list for the next budget. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's baked into the budget, that is up to the budget work. So if we get to the budget meeting and this is not in the budget, you can refer it to the SPAP, you can refer it to the multi-year budget, you can recommend that it be included, whatever the will of the committee is.
I'm kind of leaning yes at this point.
I would prefer to go to the SPAP process. And discuss it at that point in juncture. Because then this way, as a whole, as a council,
Yeah.
we can all support each other at that time on what, because each of us, when we sit down together, we
Yeah.
all talk about our priorities and how we want to fund certain projects and certain boards.
I'll support that.
So like they've already are starting the work to do their class, their class estimates, which is gonna obviously take some time, so I think moving it towards the SPAP will be a good discussion for all of us, council, because I understand what you're saying, Councillor Gilroy. The north end and the inner city definitely needs some TLC as well, and we can have those debate, I think, internally between us and some new councillors that are coming on board.
I would support going to the yes.
So could we amend just the therefore be resolved?
Yeah, so
That
instead of,
funding for the Dakota Community Center Third Arena and Recreation Center project proposal be referred to the SPAP review.
yes.
Okay. Let's do
And
that amendment.
who is the mover of this motion?
I can take the chair, if you want to take the chair, I can move that.
So, yeah, okay, fine.
Okay, if Gilroy will take the chair and I will move that
Okay, so
amendment.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
motion's carried.
Okay, excellent. Moving on to public swim programming at Sugar Pool. I don't think we have someone from the public service to talk about it. Okay, sure, Kelly, come on up. And remind me the gentleman's name.
This is Chris Brown. from
Yes.
Recreation Services.
Yes,
So he's here to
talk about.
support, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
So we have this motion that please come from your committee counselor. We just brought my papers here. With the motion that the public service is directed to review and report back in 60 days on the feasibility of reinstating early morning public swim programming at Sherbrooke Pool, including assessment of current staffing requirements, operating costs, attendance history, and anticipated community demand. So if I understand right, what we're looking for here is bringing a report back to provide you with the information in here as a for information report with the values, et cetera, on what that would look like. That's certainly something we can bring back for you. Yeah, I don't have the information today, but we certainly can. I think it's a little committee.
There's lots of concern, I think, if I remember correctly, given back in time. There was issues we had around staffing at the time. I'm hoping that we've resolved that. And it just, I know the community is very concerned that, like, as they're looking at Sherbrooke Pool entirety, that when they reduce the hours of the swim times, they reduce them really, I guess, from my understanding, not in those classes, but from my understanding, they were actually growing. There's actually more people starting to attend those. It was kind of a growing morning swim and growing kind of swim classes after 4 o'clock. And so the loss of that, it's you're also losing how many members are using the pool, right? Because we're slowly reducing those hours. So that's been a concern for the community, and they've really want to keep this pool open. And so making sure that we have appropriate times, it is really critical. So, yeah. we can do that.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, as you know, we do operate within our operating budget.
Yeah.
Our schedules change, I'll say almost seasonally, depending on where it is. It's based on attendance, based on past attendance. Staffing is always a concern, but it's not the only thing that drives what our operating hours.
It was like it might be more now. I think at the time, it was like the cost was like 60,000, like it was so small.
Yeah.
And I might have to fight for that in the budget line or whatever, but if they can at least have the information.
And for Sherbrooke Pool, I mean, it's not 12 months a year that there's been changes to schedule. It's, it's a seasonal change to the schedule, but we can certainly bring back some information to provide you with what that's going to look like, what it would cost, because again, we're balancing, we are balancing our budget amongst all the facilities. One of, some of the changes we make is often we'll look at it from the perspective of if we do X, we can give Y. So if we, for a short period of time, don't offer, say, lap swim from 4 to 5 o'clock, et cetera, that allows us then the operating budget to increase maybe the swim programs for the children in the neighborhood. And we do know that Sherbrooke Pool is in an area of need, and we want to make sure that it's available for the residents of that community. We do have a lot of people that attend that pool that don't live in that community. It's just convenient because they're coming from another community and they're going into work downtown, and it is a very loved pool. So trying to accommodate everything. So we can bring the report back, absolutely. I just have one question though. It's 60 days. So I'm looking at Peter. This would be October.
60 days.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, we don't have a meeting in October.
So it's gonna be.
But it would be in the November.
November
December.
schedule, okay. Just wanted to confirm the time.
And then that'll be kind of right around the budget time. Those that.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity on this, like I would think, but maybe I'm wrong, wouldn't it be that the summertime would be the time when people are utilizing the pool more? Or am I wrong on that?
I think it depends on the nature of what they're using it for, whether it's people using it for a lap swim or not. But we do have the Freight House pool opens in the summer. So we, during the summer months, we I think it's about a kilometer or so away. The Freight House pool is available. So we've got that added capacity for summer use. We've got Cindy Clausen nearby as well.
Yeah.
So there is a balance by we're increasing capacity in another area, not far from it, that will provide the opportunity for play, fun, access to water during the summer months.
Okay, I was just curious if we see an increase in overall of all of our pools. Do we see an increase in the summertime? Because when you're cold, you might not want to go for a swim.
Yeah.
So I was just curious on those numbers.
Yeah,
If I could, sort of anecdotally, but contextually, the numbers tend to fall off in summer when the outdoor pools open at the indoor sites. So we do draw more crowds to like St. Vital outdoor pool, Killorn Park, Transcona Aquatic Park. And there's a shift in the service. So at Sherbrooke specifically, where fall, winter, spring, we would have the swim lessons after school and on weekends. In the summertime, we moved to daytime blocks, and you purchase 10 lessons over 2 weeks versus a weekly lesson. When we looked at the numbers, the evening attendance, particularly at Sherbrooke, went very small in July and August. Most of the traffic at the facility is based on our leader guide programs. So we have the active living programs for adults in the mornings with the aquatic fitness, some of the specialty aquatic fitness, because it is a warmer pool with a very large shallow end. So we do aqua fitness for people with arthritis and fibromyalgia at that site. The swimming lessons during the day, and then in the afternoons, it tends to be community groups that are coming in. So Spence Neighborhood Association brings, their kids in their summer day program to Sherbrooke during the day versus in the evening, like we would see during the school year.
And are you looking, Councilor Gill, for all year round, or is this a?
No, it's just for they just reduced the summer hours in the morning and in the evening. So just, yeah.
I do also remember the reminder that we still have, with regards to Sherbrooke, we do have another report coming forward in 2027. With the adoption of the multi-year budget in 2024, the council directed the public service to come back with a 4-year review for Sherbrooke Pool. So we will be coming back with that again. That will be including, we were asked to come back with monthly usage, annual revenue, expenses. Do we need a community assessment, functional conditions? So some more basic information, statistical information, about the pool over a 4-year period. So we'll also be bringing that forward September 2027.
Oh, okay.
So again,
still
it'll
got another year.
Yeah, another year on that one. Yeah.
In the meantime, we're just gonna look at reviewing and reporting back in, and I think you said November. And what the costs were for morning public swim programming.
Yeah, so reinstating the early morning public swim program at the pool.
Okay.
Assessment of staff. I'm assuming that if you just want to clarify, it is for the summer swim programming.
Yeah, because that's the only thing that we do.
And your attendance history, do you want to go like 3 years? Like how long has that program been around for?
The program,
the early morning public swim program.
It's not a program, it's just it's lap swim. It's public
Lap swimming?
Yeah, so we designate a certain time in the morning that you come in and you can swim laps. So it's not a program, it's public access. Come at that time and they
Can
swim.
you go back in like 3 years attendance history? Do
We
you have 3 years?
Yeah, we have attendance. We've got a lot of attendance information.
Okay.
When someone comes to a facility, though, we don't know if they're there for use the sauna. Might be using another amenity, but we do have a lot of information.
Sherbrooke Pool is,
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but we do have, I know we were looking at information last year. We'll provide what we have.
Just like on that though, I don't know if it's like, so on that, if we're gonna do that though, like what is the difference between like say Cindy Cross, right? So, like, you said they could be going, to other areas, right? Like
They're available. I don't know if they are going, but we do have other facilities
so it's
available.
hard to judge that. It's really hard to judge that.
Yeah.
And the reality is we don't make money. Like we're not a moneymaker, pools aren't. The challenge with this one is we only really have the pool, right? We do have the other amenity, gym, but it's very small gym, so, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Great, all those in favor, I'll move by Councillor Gilroy.
Aye.
We're not doing any amendments, we're just keeping it as is, so that's some clarity. Okay, on what's gonna come back in November.
In
Sounds good. Yeah, just wait,
okay.
I didn't call the question, so all those in favor, Councillor Gilroy's motion, aye, that's carried. And need to go back to item number 14. Rescind the motion as Councillor Allard needs to declare a conflict. He needs to give the room. So rescinding the motion on Community Incentive Grant, La Maison Gabrielle Royal, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we'll allow Councillor Allard to move out of the room. And then Councillor Gilroy, if you can move motion to support the community committee's recommendation to not concur in the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service.
Okay.
And move this forward.
Yeah.
Okay,
So moved.
moved by Councillor Gilroy, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. I don't think there's any other business, we are done. Okay, I'll move, if you have a,
Oh, yes.
yeah, Red moves adjournment, 11:54 a.m. All those in favor? Aye, and that's carried. Thank you. Thank you. We will see you back here in